Hello, everybody. I wish everybody a good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
On behalf of Fluid Power Society of India, it gives me great pleasure to moderate this discussion. My name is Seshnath. The five distinguished panelists, we have Mr. Seethapathy Rao. I'll give you an introduction to each one of them, but just as a roundup, we have Mr. Seethapathy Rao, Mr. Rajesh Bhandari, Roopak Sharma, Mr. Ashutosh Kulkarni, and Mr. Sujoy Pal. Very brief introduction so that each one of you know where they each come from. That Mr. Seethapathy Rao brings with him an extraordinary track record of entrepreneurship and business leadership. He worked for over 30 years in Wipro Corporation and was largely instrumental in building up the business of cylinders and other equipment for Wipro. He grew it along with Mr. Azim Premji right from the start. Post his retirement, he has started his own business called Hycom Engineering, which he now heads. He's got extensive experience in hydraulics, have been active in also mentoring a lot of people in the field. On my left, on the left of your screen is Mr. Rajesh Bhandari. Sorry, he's the senior leader who's presently working for Gates Corporation, a senior managing director India. He has over 30 years experience, of which the last 15 years are in association with Gates. He has expanded the company to a dominating position in industrial and automotive markets by introducing new, highly engineered products driven by material science and process engineering technology. He is motivational, a hands-on leader, and has honed skills to spot business opportunities and persist through roadblocks with a smiling face all the time. Rajesh is well networked and represented in industry bodies, and he is very active in industry bodies, helps customers with solutions from the Gates global portfolio. We have Mr. Roopak Sharma with us from JCB, head of Advanced Engineering Solutions for JCB. Long timer in JCB, he has spent over 22 years in the off-highway machine industry, and he is now head of Advanced Engineering in as far as JCB India is concerned, leading multiple technology groups, driving technology across product lines to create a leadership difference in India. And as all of you know, the path breaker and innovator as far as technology is concerned in India is JCB. And Mr. Roopak Sharma has kindly consented to be with us, share his thoughts. In fact, JCB is a leading manufacturer of construction equipment in India, wholly owned by JC Bamford Excavators. They started manufacturing backhoe loaders in 1979, and today JCB offers 69 different types of models, 9 different product lines, with all plants operating on the principle of one global quality. Most of these products are now also exported to more than 110 countries. Additionally, Roopak is also working on the reduction of global footprint to contribute towards climate change, or rather to avoid climate change. Before JCB, Roopak has worked with the construction equipment and agri-industry. Mr. Ashutosh Kulkarni from Parker is a mechanical engineer and an MBA by education. He has an experience of 28 years in mobile and industrial hydraulics in various areas such as sales, service, application engineering, marketing, and business development. He has been with Parker for over 20 years and held various positions, roles, and responsibilities in Parker. He has an exposure to diverse industry segments, starting from construction and mining onto steel, onto material handling, renewable energy, defense, industrial. He's located in Mumbai, actually in New Mumbai, and he travels often to different locations of Parker. We have Mr. Sujoy Pal, who's from Bosch Rexroth. He's basically a mechanical engineer, MBA, and also a fellow of the Institution of Engineers. Over 27 years in industry, 5 years with Larsen and Toubro, and a couple of years with McGregor. Then the past 20 years have been with Bosch Rexroth and worked in sales, business cluster management, service, and head of engineering applications is his current role. I'm so I'm so glad that all of you take your time off and agree to share your thoughts with us. This is a very key forward to session because the program, as we have conceived it, is think global, act local. This comes from the fact that there are a lot of supply chain disruptions which have been brought by the COVID-induced lockdowns in various parts of the world, and the latest one being in Shanghai, which was under lockdown for 2 months, partially opened from June, but again, there are micro lockdowns, and also in the war in Europe. And this has not only caused supply disruptions, it has also caused prices to spiral. It has shaken the faith of the entire global community in the existing supply chain model. So much so that a lot of countries are looking at a China plus one strategy. No, so that we can have a China plus one strategy. This China plus one strategy gives a wonderful opportunity for India as a country to get into manufacturing space, to get into the supply space in fluid power technologies. So far, India has been, I wouldn't say a big player, but not a very big player either in terms of manufacture of components, in terms of development of technologies, and so on. This is a wonderful opportunity. We invite the panelists to deliberate, discuss, speak about three major aspects related to this. One is addressing manufacturing challenges. Second is addressing technology challenges. And third is addressing skill gaps or talent gaps and how to plug it. In manufacturing, specifically, how can Indian fluid power companies improve their manufacturing systems through adoption of modern methods? Now, unless we all do that, we would not be ready to machine world-class products or manufacture world-class products and thereby use India as a manufacturing hub for companies globally. In the technology sphere, we all need to identify the appropriate products to be manufactured immediately, like low-hanging fruits. It's quite obvious that not every product can be made in India. And it's not that Indian companies are incapable of making it, but then if the demand for India for that particular product is not very high now, it doesn't make sense to put in too much of investments, time, energy, and effort. So we should be able to pick products which are used both in India, and India can be used as a manufacturing hub for global use. We also need, apart from picking the low-hanging fruits in technology, we also need a technology roadmap on where Indian fluid power industry, be it hydraulics, be it pneumatics, be it automation, robotics. So a roadmap for the medium term, say 3 to 5 years, where it should be going. And we would welcome your thoughts on that. We would also welcome your thoughts on how Indian companies can access these technologies. They could take the shape of joint ventures with companies overseas. It could be technology transfers with a one-time payment fee. It could be contract manufacturing arrangements. These are all food for thought. We welcome your views. To sustain manufacturing in the long run and to adopt more technologies on an easier basis, the first primary requirement is skill sets. And India has quite some way to go to build up these skill sets. We would like your thoughts on what Indian industry should do, along with academic institutions, along with Fluid Power Society, and if necessary, the Ministry of Science and Technology and the Government of India, to increase the skill sets among Indian people. It could take the form of changes in syllabus in colleges, having specializations in fluid power, certification for working professionals, and so on. I emphasize this is a freewheeling discussion. It is not meant to evolve solutions in the next 1 or 2 hours. It is meant to throw up ideas for people to mull over, to think, ruminate, and come out with solutions which are highly unique to their situations. But at the end of the day, your thoughts should resonate in terms of showing a path forward for Indian fluid power industry. What we propose to do, gentlemen, is that to ensure that, after all, I don't want to be a TV anchor. So what we propose to do is the way we'll go about it is we will have a round robin where each one of you gets 10 minutes to speak about his thoughts, views, ideas, and opinions. And at the end of the 50 minutes, I'll give a small summary of about 5 minutes or so on what each one of you has spoken. Perhaps some thoughts would have occurred to you when somebody else was speaking, or it might occur to you later. So we can have another round robin, or we can have, or whoever wants to speak can most welcome to speak. I hope we are all ready to start off this very exciting journey of the next 2 hours. I invite Mr. Seethapathy Rao, given his enormous experience and worldwide knowledge, to kick off the deliberations. Mr. Rao, the floor is yours. No, you're on mute, Mr. Rao.
I just realized it.
Yeah.
Somebody put me on the mute, I think. Thank you, Seshnath. Seshnath has already given us a broad overview of what we'll be discussing. This topic of think global, act local emanated from one of the overarching principles or views we had about Fluid Power Society of India. When we're discussing about what should we be doing, what should we be aiming to achieve in the long term, we're of course planning to have a research laboratory for fluid power. But in terms of the business, in terms of the fluid power technology itself, we said that can India be among the top 5 fluid power product component technology manufacturers in the world? We are currently 7. So can we go to 5th position? And at that stage, maybe we can aim to go to higher position. What does it entail? How do you go to that level? So there has been a deliberation that we have had in the FPSI for over a year now, and various activities are being put together to go to that extent. And the Fluid Power Society of India obviously is a catalyst. It is not a large organization. It is a catalyst to develop thoughts among the industry. Basically, this kind of an objective of growing rapidly and becoming one of the top in the world is done by strategic decisions made by large companies. They are the ones who lead the industry forward in technology, in size, in exports, in manpower, and everything. And many of the issues brought up by Seshnath, like training and development, technology selection, etc., are all components of that. Now, this discussion today is also to highlight what we need to be doing, what business leaders need to be doing to achieve this. Unless we have a clear thought as to what the business leaders can contribute in this kind of an exercise to take India forward to a much higher position in the fluid power world, in the pure technology, pure fluid power business in the world, we will not be able to succeed. There are 2 types of industries in India. One group are the local companies, Indian companies, which have become large now. The 2 good examples in that are Wipro and Dynamatic. And there are many multinational companies who now have plants in India, operate in India, manufacture, and even design. These 2 have different sets of challenges to go forward and grow bigger. Perhaps the Indian companies have grown faster. Both the companies, Wipro and Dynamatic, have become multinationals now. They have plants around the world. They are doing very well. They are investing in R&D. They are doing new product development, new technology absorption, etc. The multinational companies, which are also based in India, apart from the headquarters, perhaps have a disadvantage or a higher level of challenge that they need to persuade their home offices to give a higher level of priority for India and business in India. So that becomes a responsibility that business leaders like us will need to handle. And we need to put together all the business leaders in India in the fluid power business to act together and act similarly to achieve this. Now, if we want to grow so large, there are two areas of strength that India has already offered, maybe three areas. One is we are strong in R&D. We've got very good R&D talent in India. Two, our market itself is large. It's already a sizable market. And three, our competitive position with respect to manufacturing. Add to this, the fourth situation now is that most companies in the world are looking for a China plus one policy. On the first blush, when China had problems, people said that we'll replace China with something else. Then the realization dawned that China was so big and so powerful that it is not possible to replace it. All that can be done is to have an additional source so that the world's logistics, world supply chains don't break easily. So that was the thought. Now, can we be part of the plus one? Can we make ourselves suitable for that? So this is where the challenge comes. So one of the areas I think we need to address is we as individuals, the chief executives of various companies, the leaders in India, how can we persuade our own home offices, other executives in India, to ensure that we grow beyond the growth of our country? How did China grow so large? They did not depend upon Chinese demand. Whatever they planned for the global demand. That's how they become so strong, so large, and so irreplaceable. So this is an idea that we need to keep in mind, that we need to grow much faster than the home market permits. Two, we need to grow in technology. India is already absorbing the best of technologies of the world. So we are ready for that. We are no more the India of 30 years ago or 40 years ago. We are ready to go in terms of technology absorption and utilization and deployment. So how do we get all these technologies in place? Three, how to make the Indian business or whatever is done in India in terms of manufacturing, technology, development, etc., profitable to respective home offices. It has to make economic sense finally. So this requires a strategy. I think each company's strategy will be different. Each board will look at things in a different way, but we need to have a mix of thoughts wherein this can be done to persuade home offices to do something big in India. So whereas we are looking for, from the Fluid Power Society of India's view, to help make India one of the large producers of fluid power products in the world, to be in the top 5 in the world, all industry leaders will need to participate actively and through their companies, through their contacts, through their own abilities, make India very large. So this really is a challenge in my opinion. This adds on to what Seshnath said, and perhaps it sits on top of that. Once we do that, once we get a favorable response and focus towards India from all over the world, then we can look at technology, we can look at people, we can look at training, etc. These things will fall in place. These are all functional specializations, and so it can fall in place. So that's briefly what my thoughts are. We need to work together to make this happen. The Indian multinationals have done pretty good job with that. The overseas multinationals who are in India need to do the heavy lifting now. Thank you, Sesh.
Thank you, Mr. Rao, for your thoughts, and I'm sure we'll come back to you for more thoughts. I invite Rajesh Bhandari to, the floor is yours, Rajesh. Again, you're on mute.
Rajesh, you're on mute. Yes.
Hi, Seshnath. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Rao, wonderful thoughts. I think it's very progressive thought what you shared. Keeping in line to what you all said, I'll start a bit India's progress from Make in India to Atmanirbhar Bharat. Most of the people think it's just more of the same. I think it is little more extension of from Make in India to Atmanirbhar Bharat. It's towards making India self-sufficient and the intent is to make India competitive, to bring a lot of jobs to India, and not only the jobs which are like lower rung jobs, but also technology jobs, and also use India as a base to export. I think my previous commentator mentioned this exactly, that don't only cater to your India requirement, but look at the world requirement. So what it brings in is, if you tend to do what world is doing today, your standards goes up, first of all. You don't try to give me too products, you try to give what is most sellable in the advanced countries, and accordingly your entire value chain goes up. The customer offerings goes up, the competitiveness goes up. Now, staying with that same thought, what I think is perfect environment today, perfect topic to talk today for our industry also. But before I dwell on that, I will say that let me take a minute and look at, is the climate right today? Look at GST, today GST has relaxed the procedures what we used to have in the past, dealing with different states, different taxes. Next, digitalization. Look at the formation of the company to the delivery of the product. It has shrunk. We see every day so many new companies getting formed as a startup and delivering products within few months, at best a year. So that's another thing which is happening, and that has brought us at par with the world. Foreign direct investment had been a challenge in the past, but look at the way today that investment is coming in. The government infrastructure projects has brought connectivity to probably the all-time best. You all are of my age, here and there. You have seen where this country was and where we are today. Today we have 4-lane roads in most of the places, very good connectivity, which means that our competitiveness of the people in far-flung areas, rural areas, or maybe small town areas, you can make that as a base and reach out to your ports for exports, or reach out to the big markets within the country. The other one, what we have clearly seen is Indians have made mark across the world. You see the top 10 companies, I think 4 or 5 of them are led by Indian CEOs. Why so? Because of the brain power, the engineering college, the MBA colleges here are so competitive, they get you best out of you. We may not have brands of Harvard and Mitsubishi universities today, but our IITs, the other state engineering colleges are no second, in terms of the real content they teach us. The next one, the government scheme of localizing the content, especially in the defense sector, I'll say. They have said less than 50 to probably now 70-75%, which means a lot of localization is going to happen if you have to do that kind. And that's where I'll link my business of fluid power, because if those things have to be made in India, you have to have components of that quality to support localization. So we all make very good components. If we are, in our multinational companies, we know that we are participating in Western world, the Far East, and we are very competitive there. We are growing that business. We have best of the technologies. Where we have to now upscale is to sell those things within the company to get further more advancements. Probably, I think if you are in a good company, they say that one product across the world, you don't differentiate between what we offer in US or in Europe or in India or Japan. It's the same product. The product should feel the same, perform the same. That's a need of the hour, and because people are producing anywhere in the world and exporting out, at different places. So it is already happening there. Now I'm taking a further, step up is towards our customers. We have, our top customers today in India is JCB, and Roopak represent them here. Look at the way they have grown the business in India. They have really made a mark for themselves, dominates this industry, and now the exports also from India. So participating with them definitely is one part of it. But then how do we make them competitive and so that they can export more and more from India? and we become a member in that supply chain. Now, next step towards that is what I understand again from the construction equipment industry is there is more than required capacity already available in the country. There are the capacities set up by many companies, and most of them are multinational companies, are probably close to twice what India requires. And I also hear from them that probably the construction equipment is cheapest in the India as compared to anywhere in the world. So it's kind of what should I say? It's an imbalance here. We are saying that we have a lot of capacity, we can export. I'm saying we have MNCs working here, supporting our customers. So what is the gap which can make our OEMs more competitive to start exporting from India? That will make maybe the supply chain. We still don't have those logistics what China has. We have been talking about China plus one and all that, but I think we have to address that. One of the core things is the cost. I'm told that the cost of transportation in India, logistic cost in India, is 12% as compared to China 4%. It's 4 times basically. It's 4 times logistic cost in India to dispatch material from India to any other place. And most of you, if you run your businesses, you know that prior to COVID, inland transportation was more expensive than the over the sea. That was a challenge for us. Now it is improving, but not yet there. So logistic one part. Secondly, competencies of the people. As I think again it came up, we have good engineers, but how do we make those engineers more work with our skill councils, upgrade the skills of our people so that they make perfect product. So I think it's not one solution. It's like every place we have to put some intense work, some deep-rooted work to make ourselves competitive and to be seen the way we have done it in the IT industry. Why can't we do it in construction? Why can't we do it in manufacturing? I think that's the only thing which will take us to the level what we are talking here to become China plus one, or I will say that why China plus one? Why not to create our own space in this? We may differentiate ourselves on the product, technology, digitization, so many things we can do in this space, and that should be the way forward. So, that's what the first opening thoughts comes to my mind. That great topic, something which we should deliberate, take out the takeaways, go back to our organizations, and look at how we can contribute towards making this happen in the country. Thank you.
Excellent, Rajesh. I mean, again, wonderful and thought-provoking thoughts from you. I'm sure we'll start mulling over it more as we listen to the other speakers. I now invite Roopak Sharma from JCB to share his thoughts. He comes from a background which is both highly technical and highly commercial, because in his organization, as Rajesh mentioned, they are world leaders now. So, and they not only have to have the best technology, but at highly competitive rates. And Roopak has a major hand in that. The floor is yours, Roopak.
So thank you very much. Hope you are listening me right.
Yeah.
Thank you, and first of all, thank you FPSI. And second thing is, I'm very happy to share stage with so big stalwart of the industries. But I would also like to thank you because all of your experience, if I take forward, has done a lot for nation building, personally and professionally. So that's appreciable. So I think, I'm thinking loud, and today because it is FPSI and the whole focus will be on the fluid power, so I'm not going to discuss on the other things, but a little bit I will touch base upon that. And with most of them, we share the thoughts. I think what I think is, the world has changed over past 4 years, and we all know why. So again, I will not elaborate onto that, but with that, the thought process has changed. I think from a conventional thought process, we have to think a little bit ahead. And also, the things are changing rapidly, and coming to the fluid power, it is not about what component or what things we make, but it is also important that how we keep fluid power relevant, more and more relevant for the future. Because we are not only getting competition within the fluid power, but we are getting a lot of competition from the adjacent. And that's the world, is today. Another thing which I see is that, and we'll elaborate over this, discussion, is how we make, like electronics, fluidotronics or something like that, more attractive. If you see today, the young engineers who are there in the field, they want to do more towards electrifications, digitalizations, or other things. But for the conventional things, they are not that much keen. Particularly, the field of hydraulics, I am not seeing many people adopting this. So I think that's also a challenge, and we should discuss about that. But I think as far as India is concerned, Mr. Bhandari has said that it is not that conventional equipments which we make. We make now much more advanced, equipments. The systems inside these equipments are very advanced. And also I will touch base upon some of the challenges which are there right now. One of the biggest challenge is the legislation, which is driving the thought process. So that we in the construction equipment, we have just launched CEV 4 compliant equipments, and very soon we will be on CEV 5. Similarly on the tractor, term 4, term 5. And what it is doing is it is making the equipment very costly. And if something is legislated, it is very difficult to do something radical onto that. So that part is fixed. Then the rest of the parts, we are pressurized to do something. On the other hand, if you see the fuel prices or the inflation that is going up and up, we are not seeing any downward trend to that because of demand, supply, etc. And also the semiconductor, you all know what is happening in that market. So the cost of equipment is going up and up. The efficiency part is becoming more and more important, in terms of making the machine relevant if the fuel prices are going up. So I think all over the world people are starting thinking not differently but radically differently. And one of the examples is the electrification, which people are thinking right now. And earlier we thought that the hydraulic motor will be replaced sometime with the electrical motors, but we are now seeing that there's a lot of work going on the actuator side, whether it's a ball and screw mechanism, etc. So I think the hydraulic industry now has to compete with that. It can't be thinking very traditionally what it is there. The second part is that in terms of technology, whether it's an Indian company or the multinational, they have to start thinking that they have to start manufacturing in India. Not only assembly, not only CKD, not only SKD. They have to start, making the component and assembling them and make them cost effective. And other thing which will be there is that how to put a lot of money on the R&D, because if I see hydraulics has becomes more or less stagnant across the world, but in India it is more stagnant because we see that people manufacturers are making very conventional products, expect few who have worked very closely and they have starting making some of the advanced product, but still it is not to the level of the future. The second important thing will be which is now becoming mandatory is the CO2 part of the the carbon part of the industry, whether it is on the manufacturing side or whether it's from the equipment side. And one of the other example is that wherever we go, maybe in some of your industry or some of your factories, the conventional machines, for example, forklift has been replaced by electric forklift. Right. So that's also happening because there's a lot of pressures on the corporates or on the government or on the social side that we have to reduce the CO2 emissions. So I think what we have to think is that how we make the hydraulics relevant and also contribute towards the legislative or the social or the environment side of the world. And I think the important thing is that one is make in India, because as we said that if the cost of the things are going to go up and up, Indians are very intelligent. They are not only intelligent to be CEOs of the world. They are very intelligent at the grassroots level. They know that how to survive, and they can think some of the solution which is out of box. It is like when you have a utensil and you know that you have 2 members and you fill it to some extent, but when you say that members have increased, you throw away that utensil and bring a bigger one. So that is the type of challenges we all are facing. If we make the machines or the systems unaffordable, in terms of cost, then there is an issue. And if you don't do something and make them inefficient, then there is an issue. So I think there's a lot of confusion right now, and there's a lot of thought process going on. And another thing is on the digitalization. I think the expectation is that the iron should become smart, and a lot of the components they should be able to spell out their life well in advance, so that if the equipments which are costlier, the uptime will be more important. So embedded digitalizations, machine learning or the component learning, that will become more and more important, and that will be the future. And with that also, I think there will be a model in some years, which will be collaboration. It's not about the collaboration between OEMs to OEMs, but it may be a collaboration between the suppliers also. For example, if you have to work very closely with the equipment manufacturer, because cost is cost. Nobody can if there's a BOM cost, nobody can reduce that. But value, yes, there can be a lot of work which can happen on values, and that value can be some of the embedded components within the components and etc. So that will be the step forward. But I think the FPSI or the fluid power, or the fluid professional should now think about 3-4 things. One is obviously the localization. That is technology localization, not a conventional localization. And second thing will be the skill enhancement. I think the skill enhancement should be from the college, from universities, from the school, or even the associates which are working in the factories should be professionals for these type of things, because quality and reliability will be one of the most demanding thing in the future. And the last thing is that work very closely in an ecosystem where the things become more and more affordable and more efficient. So I think this is my thought, initial thoughts, and we can elaborate onto it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roopak. I must say, wonderful fountain of thoughts have come from you. Of course, we will come back to pick more of your brains. Once we're through with the others also. I invite now Mr. Ashutosh Kulkarni to take the floor. You're on mute, Ashutosh. Yeah, now you're okay.
So, thank you, Mr. Seshnath, and thank you to FPSI for giving me the opportunity to share the platform with the industry stalwarts right now. If I look at the topic, think global, act local. So, I think China plus one or otherwise, India does have a massive opportunity of growing in the fluid power industry. We have been doing, I think, exceedingly well because one of the speakers did say that we are in the top 7 manufacturers in this in globally. So we have an ample opportunity to move up the scale, and just to think how we can take the place that we deserve. So obviously we need to have the cost competitiveness in our manufacturing. So that how do we get to that place is by investing into modern machinery, improving our throughput efficiencies, improving the process reliabilities, and that means that we need to have a vision to create capacity. I believe if we are able to create capacity, we need to have the faith that we'll be able to grow the business. One of the pillar I believe would be quality mindset. So today, because of the situation that the world is facing because of the China lockdowns, world is more than keen and on looking at India as a source location, and if cost competitiveness is going to open the door for us, I believe the quality mindset is something which will sustain us there. So we need to embrace the zero defect culture. And when I say this is not only for the fluid power manufacturers themselves, because the fluid power industry guys themselves, are dependent onto a vast ecosystem of sub-equipment manufacturers, part manufacturers. So this mindset has to percolate within the whole industry. I believe we don't need to look too far. We have success stories within us. If we look at the auto component industry and the auto industry, I think we'll find a lot of learnings there of successful businesses which have grown locally, gone abroad, and throughout the supply chain there are suppliers who export and compete well in the market, in the global market. So this is where we need to look into. That's an opportunity. Of course, all of this comes at a cost. So I believe we as business leaders, we have this responsibility to be ambassadors in our own organizations, and I'm talking of the multinationals, to pull the demand to India. I believe all the OEMs today, and there was a mention of the capacity levels and the utilization levels. So India has a lot of capacity to manufacture, and we can manufacture for the world. If again, I would say this is a food chain. So if the OEMs are able to make machines for the world, that gives us the fluid power industry to manufacture products for the world. That obviously is going to make us more competitive, and that's what I think we as leaders we need to do our own bit to get the demand to India. We obviously would have challenges, but there are examples wherein some machines are being exported, and probably we can do more. Coming to think of the technological barriers or the technological opportunities, if you might say, for sure, I think electronification of the equipment and electrification of the equipment is staring us quite wide. I mean, we see machines are becoming smarter and smarter. Digitization of equipment is happening. Touch screens are, being the order of the day. So that's where the technology is driving us. Maybe as a thought, why not the Indian industry look at adopting these products first, where we can have a first mover advantage. Instead of doing the standard stuff, standard products, why not we get onto these new age products first? That's something which we can think about. Of course, we have the challenge to make this new technology affordable for the OEMs to implement themselves onto their machines. But this is an area, where I think there's a lot of capability in India, and we can, easily crack this puzzle. If we look from a skill capability point of view, I believe there is no dearth of skill in India, be it on the software side or be it on the mechanical side or on the electronic side. Probably we know this, that a lot of Indian talent goes out of India, studies and, is developing machines and working in R&D labs in North America, in Europe. So we need to, find ways and means to retain this talent in India, give them opportunities, and that's the way probably we can make a difference, is what I feel. So that's probably some of these things that I want to mention on this platform. So there is an opportunity on a lot of products. As I said, maybe pumps, maybe valves, maybe electronics, and all of this is going to become smarter and smarter. So that's where, we as a group, we need to focus. We also need to remain vigilant, that as Roopak also said, that hydraulics doesn't become stagnant. We have to keep innovating, keep improvising ourselves to keep us relevant and embrace the new technology. These are my thoughts as of now.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh. It's been a very eye-opening remarks from you, and you have thrown up a lot of ideas for people to mull over. And I'm sure we'll come back with a few more ideas from you in the next round. I now invite Mr. Sujoy Paul from Bosch Rexroth to speak his mind.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Seshnath. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon to all the panelists and Mr. Seshnath, as well as good afternoon to the audience. This is quite an interesting topic, and especially Mr. Seshnath has thrown a few words which are very key to me. Think global, act local, then the manufacturing, technology, and third thing was the skill development. Now we can make a grid, and I got a very nice overview from all my previous speakers, panelists in this discussion, and everybody has thrown it beautifully, and actually they left very minimum for me. But that's quite nice, and then I can try to bring a different perspective. When we talk about think global, there are two sides of it. What we are thinking about the global market sitting in India, and what the other people are sitting about thinking about India sitting in the global market. I will try to bring all a small view on this. Now, when I see from the global side, let's say I often interact with my parent company in Germany and in all other countries. We find that our installed capacity at this point of time is globally quite sufficient with respect to the demand. Okay, and even if you take last 10, 12 years, it was always an yo-yo, and there was always a nice situation that you develop your capacity, and then the market crashes. You you are ending up with a lot of inventories, and then again market goes up. That is how last 10, 12 years, if you see the market, it is growing up. Again, the demand, domestic demand in China. I'm trying to bring in view on the China plus one or China plus two strategy, whatever is being discussed. Domestic demand in China is very robust. Let it be very honest and candid about it. We are few percentage of it. And in last 15, 20 years, China has taken themselves to the manufacturing hub of the globe. They delivers roughly around 27, 28, 30% of the manufacturing being done in the globe, where we are at around 5 to 6%. Yes, we are also number 6 or 7 in the world as far as the manufacturing is concerned. And this market, if you see, be it a construction equipment, be it a material handling, be it a steel industry, process industry, where our fluid power goes, the technology is not really equal in all part of the world. Europe, North America has got a different technology. China has got a mix of technology. They are very advanced. They have also the low, and in India also we get all the sort of inquiries of all different technology platforms. So these are all the challenges. When we look into the Indian industry from the global perspective is there, and but that should not be the limiting thing. In our opinion and in our industry, a lot of localization is being done, like Mr. Kulkarni said, Roopak also said, all this localization, they have some, we can catch up with some kind of a new products. These all things can happen. Now, what is the barrier for us in the localization manufacturing? Let us understand. We don't have a domestic quantity for a very economic production, and the time to market or development of components is very, very long sometime in India, and especially the zero defect product and all are a question. So it has these sort of things we need to look into how we can strengthen our supplier base. Rightly, Roopak said that it should not be, a localization should not end up as a CKD or so. Yes, that's a big challenge. Even if we produce some pumps or motors in India, and the parts comes from China or from Turkey, we will have the same kind of a problem which we are facing today, getting a full unit due to these logistic issues or so. How fast we can localize the parts, that's a challenge, and important is to have the defect-free product, right quantity, at right price, at right time for the production. And here our downstream industries has to gear up. And maybe I don't know FPSI how they can play an important role in that. Technology wise, maybe with our parent companies, those which are MNC companies, even the Indian companies like Wipro or Dynamatics, they have the technologies. Can they support their child part supplier to support the manufacturing? Now, second is the next point should be the skill. I think the skill is, like Mr. Kulkarni also said, skill is not that limited. We have enough ample of skills available. Let's say, just to say about us, we are connected with several universities in India, where we are trying to support their curriculum in the masters on the fluid engineering. and we are trying to bring them in our plants, in our application areas to give them a kind of an overview. I'm sure everybody is doing like that. And there is no such big dearth of the skills in India, but the skills needs to be upgraded. Uh, Mr. Seshnath, that will be my brief discussion on this at this point of time, and later on when more thoughts will come, maybe I will add on.
Sure. Thank you very much, Sujoy.
Yeah. So I think some questions.
Hello, Mr. Rao. Yes.
Yeah, Sesh, if you permit,
Yeah.
one issue I think at the CEO level we need to address and be clear about is what Roopak raised. You know, he was very kind to us, he was soft to us. In fact, what he was telling is that you guys may not be relevant after some time and take care of your industry first. You know, let the industry survive. I think it's a very powerful comment. I think it's a very relevant comment. So since you people are wired into what is happening in your headquarters in terms of thinking on the same topic, maybe you can throw some light on that. Then second point I have to mention is that, you know, one of the points that Paul mentioned just now is about volume growth in India. I remember several years ago, when I was the president of FPSI at that time, in one of the conference of CEOs, I had mentioned one thing. When we were looking for markets, I said, why don't you look at each other as a market? The logic was that each one of us is spreading ours too thin. We try to do too many things in too little quantities. Why don't we exit some of those things and subcontract or ask somebody to make it for us? Can we mutually think of this opportunity to increase volumes which will benefit everybody? Just as a thought, this is what we did, but really it wasn't very successful, but the thought was thrown into the air. Now, maybe we can start with the first point, that if you can kindly clarify what the thinking is, how does hydraulics industry move forward in future to make itself relevant? Because we have got an existential threat here. If you don't exist around, then what are we developing for? Roopak, sir.
Question is for me. I think there are a few things, you know, and I'm talking in general. You know, if you see what is happening around the world and what is happening in India, you know, you can have some trend lines onto that. See, one of the things is that all the compact equipment around the world, and you know, they are on a fast pace. If you look into, you know, CAGR or something, you know, right now they may be small, but how they are growing is on the adoption of electrification. You know, we have one of the mini excavator, you know, which was launched in US, having actuators which are electrical, you know, and they have commercialized it. Earlier we were thinking about only motors, etc. That is one important thing, is because, you know, if you see, there are two type of issues, and that's why I called it as a confusing statement at the moment, because people are confused rather than, you know, and I will elaborate onto that, because with that confusion there are also mistakes which people are doing, you know. So the confusion is, you know, one side, if you see the fossil fuel, you know, which is the prime fuel right now, the cost is going up around the world, you know. Inflation is at the high, you know, some of are unheard in European market at this point of time. So people are thinking that if, you know, and then again the legislation is killing, you know, it is killing the some of the products. So people are thinking that if that is not the case, can we find some alternate, you know, electricity right now, and that renewable or green electricity, you know, that is taking traction around the world. So that is, you know, one of the reason why small equipments are moving towards that side. Look at the Norway, you know, look at the Scandinavian countries, what is happening there. Even, you know, the big equipment are electrified. And I know that in Australia, and you know better than me, because some of you are starting selling electrical products where you were selling hydraulic products in the mines, where the big equipments, the large equipments or very big equipments are becoming, they're being electrified to the core. So I think that's why the challenge is. The second thing is what the industry is doing in mistake, and right now, sorry Seshnath, I'm just talking at a global level, it is little bit different. They are trying to invest in something which may not become a commercially viable in the end. There was a discussion on one type of pump in your seminar, and I will not take names right now, but they have made that so complicated. It is efficient, but it is very costly. It is not finding customers. So the important thing is affordable excellence, right? And you have rightly said, the collaboration is required for some of these things. So you have to go for very highly efficient components which can help in, I would say, at least for next 20-30 years, which should help in sustaining these goals which some of the big corporates are taking right now, or the government is taking. So go for a highly power efficient product which can compete it, which can save space, which can be fitted directly into OEM's component. Means you don't have to develop castings, etc. And then you have to scale them out. And as far as India is concerned, you see the adoption of technology. I think it is one of the fastest if there is a value. If there is no value, they don't adopt. Look at the electrification. There was a data I was reading in a newspaper that in Delhi, 2 months back, the sale of electric vehicles were more than the CNG vehicles. So that means that adoptions, the thought process start going in that direction. That goes on. So I think in order to make, or you have to look into something hybrid, half fluid, half something. That will help. So if the trend is like that, then as I said, that we may say, like, if the small equipment are vanishing, if large equipments are vanishing from this, because large equipment doesn't think about so much about the cost, then there will be issues on the system designs, and also, as I said, skill. Sujoy talked about university collaboration and all, but I said right now whole of the research is going on electrifications, hydrogens, fuel cells, at the moment, and people are attracted towards that. If you ask any engineer from the college whether you want to go to work on a hydraulics or you want to go on a fuel cell, that's a question mark right now. So how you make this profession attractive? It should not be an old age type of profession. I went to one of the Scandinavian country and I found very, very good engineers there, but all were 60 plus. So my question was from them is that how you are going to replace this talent? There was no answer. So I think that are the challenges, if I have elaborated it right.
Thank you so much.
Seshnath, give me a chance to take the point what Roopak raised. So fluid power, don't think that I'm just defending the society here. It's a absolute engineering dialogue happening here. Fluid power will remain, even with electrification, even with hydrogen, with any other technology. That's my experience. We are participating in electrification, and we clearly see that if you have higher batteries being used, and the equipment you are talking about will further require higher size of the batteries, okay, or the power pack, whatever you use there, it requires to be cooled. Cooling requires electric pumps. Cooling requires thermal management system. Fluid power comes into play there as well. Yes, the core will change. The way we had been doing business, it will change. We have to change our products. It cannot sustain the same product what was selling as just to transmit the diesel through it or a biodiesel through it. It cannot be the same. It has to be different. But I think we still remain relevant, for the thermal management system. And the product has to change. Since we participate in power transmission also, fully agree with your point of view. Even we are looking at that, but that's where we have to upgrade ourselves to the need of the hour.
So I think just I will add one point. I fully agree with you. It is not going to extinct. The thing is that you have to change the course. And the first change of course, in my opinion, is to bring technology, the best of technology which is existing right now. We don't have to think anything else. And some of the things you are doing, some of the things some of the panelists sitting here are doing. They are doing it. So bring that technology and localize that so that the cycle goes on, and it will be a change over time. It's not a one day, and I fully agree with you. It's not a one day thing. But thing is that we have to take 2 steps forward. Whatsoever is available with us, let us work on to that, and make those things relevant. At least take them out from the Western world, bring them here, and make them more relevant. Another point, is that if we start dialogue with the government, and take hydrostatics for example, or the drive system for example, equivalent to any drivetrain, which is like electric drivetrain or the hybrid drivetrain, and start working on some incentivizations, because in the end, the localization is the government of India's program, and they know that if the construction equipment or farm altogether will become a 30 billion or 40 billion, the fluid power can become 8 to 10 billion easily in that case. But there's right now we have to import those components, and if we start working with the government, I think the dialogue with government should go on and bring this component at par with some of the other components which are being subsidized or given preferential, right now, they are preferred. And so I think that's the things which Fluid Power India has to do for proactive.
Thank you so much, Roopak. I mean, we are having a very, very wonderful, exciting discussion. I hear some background noise. I think one of the organizers are doing something. I'm sorry, Joseph, if somebody is moving furniture or something, ask them to stop it. It's disturbing. Anyway, now, there are close-ended questions, there are open-ended questions, and some, and we are all familiar with it. What we had now was opening round of open talk. Okay, now I'll get a little more pointed and ask a few pointed questions to certain people, which has come to our knowledge. I mean, preparing for this presentation, we discussed from FPSI with a lot of people, and a few questions which have come up, and just address it to each one of you. This is not going to be a round robin. It's going to be addressed to one person, but if somebody else wants to add on something, he is most welcome. Okay, we all spoke about localization being very necessary now. Firstly, caused by supply chain disruptions. Secondly, also by making in India, where we have excess capacity, we have enough capacity, we can also increase our output. And it is not just manufacturing in localization, but technology localization too, as Roopak and others mentioned. Now, Mr. Rao, a number of us work for multinational companies where technology is available. And manufacturing has taken place in our home country, so to say, or parent companies. I'm speaking on behalf of a typical Indian company, which doesn't have access to these technologies, but which has the opportunity, which has the inclination and the wish to move into the space, to produce parts in India and sell it to other multinationals. Okay, if the quality is good. As somebody mentioned, unless we export, we can't benchmark ourselves to global competition. We will become more competitive when we export, and it opens out new horizons for us. So what kind of arrangements, Mr. Rao, can an Indian company look like? I'm just saying XYZ company, which is based, say, in Chennai or Delhi or somewhere else. So, and can they look at joint ventures, contract manufacturing, whatever? I'll leave the thoughts to you, sir.
The Indian companies have gone through a phase of controls. I don't think we have fully overcome that even now. The larger companies are now growing well, but the small and medium companies in India over the last few decades of controls have become mainly manufacturers of some components without much technological inputs. The entire ecosystem, especially in the mechanical engineering industry, there's not too much innovation at the small industry level. There is electronics, there is innovation at the small industry level also. So this is something that which needs to change. I think it is taking time. This is all because the government thing, they were opposing anybody producing more than what is permitted. I remember the early days of my tenure at Wipro, where we had permission to produce so many cylinders in a year. And if we produced more, we would be challenged by somebody sitting in Udyog Bhavan in Delhi, saying, how did you produce more? Who permitted you to do that? So I had to fly to Delhi and explain to him that this urgent defense requirement, because that was the only permitted thing at that time. For defense requirement, it is okay. Otherwise, it is not permitted. So that was the time, that was the kind of atmosphere we came from, and it is going to take a generational change to change the thought process in this. But it is changing. Now, the important thing is that joint ventures appear to be, for the larger industries in India, the best option to go for technology improvements. Technology comes in easily. The traditional technical collaborations don't seem to be so popular anymore. Most collaborations are equity based also. So joint venture seems to be the way to go. And since overseas companies, especially from the advanced countries like the US and Europe, are also looking for joint ventures in India, I think there is an opportune time to keep our eyes and ears open. That's one way you could get technology into the country.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for that. Rajesh, we spoke about, in fact, Roopak mentioned that, he spoke about legislation from the government for the construction equipment industry. We moved from BS3 to BS4, now BS4 to BS5. It's inevitable. And this is driven by emission norms have to be reduced and so on. We also, other panelists spoke about, in fact, you were the one who spoke about the cost of logistics being 4 times more in India as compared to China. We, other panelists spoke about, our capacity being available in India, and we need to catch hold of low-hanging fruits to export. What kind of government lobbying or support or policies should our fluid power industry be? You are in so many different industry bodies, having access to different kinds of thinking. It will be very nice if you can speak about what can be done and what cannot be done in terms of government support.
This is to me, Seshnath.
Yes,
Okay.
it is you, Rajesh.
Okay. So I'll just, before I come to the point what you said,
Yep.
I'll start what, Mr. Rao just, mentioned. Let's look at the success story of China. The China local innovation was not that high. Index was not as high. Today they are number 1, actually beating US in terms of the number of patents what they have. Twice that of US, forget about anybody else. But where did they learn from? They'll welcome the multinational companies in their country. That gave exposure to the domestic entrepreneurs to develop the companies, and today their own companies are competing and becoming multinational. We have many examples in component, in the equipment, in the automotive industry, you name it, and they have a product there. Electronics, everywhere they have their presence now. So something for us to vouch for. Like you said, bringing somebody to India. Somebody in India, an Indian guy wants to make a presence felt for exports. So one of the good things can be to welcome the MNCs in India through FDIs and all that. So that's one thing we clearly see from the government perspective. They can do more of it, making the policies easier. Today they have done a very big thing of changing the corporate tax structure. So today, if you put up a factory in most part of the world, it is as competitive to have produce in India and get the same rate of tax, 25%. If you're a new setup, it is 20. So all that is already in place. Maybe the recognition of it is not coming to this sector yet, but if you see electronic side, it is, it's very well there, and that's how this PLI is coming in, further incentivizing to invest in India. and that has to probably happen here. So as I'm still on my thought is Korea produces one of these or the second largest cars of the world, whether it is produced in some country or not, but they are designed in Korea. Japan produces the best of the cars. They hardly produce 1/10 of the world in Japan, not even 1/10. It's too high, I'm saying actually. But designed in Japan, produced in several other countries. Maybe a good thought. Construction equipment still don't have that kind of motherly country yet. Why can't be India be one of it? So it's a thought. Just listening to you all, came to my mind. We can work towards it. We can make it in any other country, but designed, developed in India. That's a thought which I'll like to take the FPSI to the government of India and make them acknowledge this. This is an opportunity still not done. You have center of excellence, some in UK for some products, some in Japan, some in Korea, some in US. I don't want to get into the details, but you all know very well which product comes better from UK and which comes better from US and which comes from Japan and Korea. So probably we can make center of excellence in India for all the construction. I'm still stuck with construction equipment and we can develop it further. Now the part you said, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, please go ahead.
Yeah, the part you said about the government support. I think this is the area government should support. Government should be coming forward in terms of saying that, okay, I acknowledge this. I'll make a park. You can make a technology park. You can make a construction equipment park. You can do whatever. Government has so much of foresight and budgets available to them, and say that, okay, for 5 years no tax. Anything can come to that effect to make it, because it has a far-reaching impact. 5 years you will not lose much. What you will gain for rest of the century. So that can be one of the thoughts. That's to park there. The second one, why we are stuck with the capacity versus supply. Everybody of you, some said, some are not saying. The challenge in India is we look at a demand forecast. We motivate our senior management overseas and say that bring the capacities here. By the time capacities come in, the demand is gone. So maybe we have to look at how do we export from India. That's to me looks like a very important thing to have a continuous running of the plant. So manufacturing cannot run one day 2,000 and another day 4,000. It requires a consistent. Even if it is consistent, 3,000 is good because your cost you can control better. So that's another thought which comes to my mind. How do we collaborate with government to ensure that some incentives, there are some incentive programs and those are not pretty attractive, I can tell you. It used to be in the past, but today it is no more attractive to exports from India. So that's another one to my mind, where they can definitely help us to make this industry more competitive. Become a center of excellence, for the world.
Excellent, Rajesh. I think you've given some fantastic ideas. I would just like to take you up on the design and develop in India point that you made. This sort of leads into what the Fluid Power Society is trying to develop. It's trying to create a National Fluid Power Research Institute, independent body, which can do design and development on a chargeable basis for anybody, anywhere in the world. Obviously, it will have safety protocols to ensure that a competitive advantage of one company is not passed on to another company. Can be used by any company. For instance, I can use it in my company. You can use it in yours, Rajesh, or Roopak, or Ashutosh. Anybody can use that. So this will breed, or it will create a climate of improvements of adoption of technology. Talking of which, I was reading an article some time back, and it said that 6 years ago, if you look at the amount of electronic transactions, that means I'm talking of credit cards. It's not even credit cards in terms of transactions through mobile, e-transactions. India was half what China was doing. But now, 6 years on, India is far ahead of China in number of transactions, not in the value of the transaction, but in the number of transactions done. You can even go to a Kiryana wala now. You can go to the neighboring shop, he's got a QR code, you pay that, 5 rupees, 10 rupees, 15 rupees, when people don't carry cash these days. So what that proves is that Indians are very good at adoption of technology. We all know that. Now, this brings me to the point, Ashutosh. You mentioned that there is a trade-off we need to do between being for money or going with traditional technologies that we already have. It's a kind of a double-edged sword, and it's just to provoke your thought. If we go with the traditional technologies, then we have proven manufacturing methods, we have proven easy adaptability and absorbability. But on the end, we know where we will be cost competitive, where we will not. However, there are disruptive technologies now which are coming up. Machine learning, digitalization, electrification, as Roopak was saying. If Indians were to jump onto that bandwagon and say, look, I will manufacture for the world, would you think, or what would you think would be the correct way to approach, Ashutosh?
Yes. So let's look at the past maybe 5 or 7 years, how things have moved in the fluid power space. And before we come to construction technology, let's look at the industrial scheme of things, the industrial machinery. Most of the light industrial machinery, which had some sort of hydraulics on it, probably has moved on to a dominant electrical motion. And we see this happening in more and more industrial equipment. In a lot of places, hydraulics may not have totally gone out, but certainly the content would have gone down. So probably if there was say a machine run by a variable pump, suddenly now you still have a pump, but it's a fixed pump. It's run by a servo motor. If you had a electro-hydraulic valve, today you don't have that. You do a speed control directly from a drive. So there are a lot of cases which we have seen of migration of technology from maybe a fully hydraulic solution to a probably to a hybrid solution, if you may call it. So, and if you just think about how for the next 5 years how this is going to happen more and more. I believe the hybrid technology is going to get adopted more and more within India, and also we see that happening outside. As you mentioned correctly, we Indians are very fast to adopt any new technology. So I see this as an extension of the same. As we have advancements in other technologies. It is encroaching on the pure hydraulic space, if I may say so. So and Roopak did mention they had a machine on the show which was fully electric. There was no hydraulics. So while that might be a few years away, or that might be a far-fetched, it may not be completely viable. But for sure, there is a need to become hybrid. Number one, there is a need to become much more smarter. So hydraulics needs to get onto the path where each of the pump, each of the valve becomes smarter. The whole the hydraulic circuit or the system itself becomes that much technologically smarter with the use of more sensors, more electronics, more displays, more controllers, you name it. And I believe this is the future of most of the machines. Coming to the fact that the uptime for all of the machines is very important. So again, we see IoT taking a center stage there, uh, and the has to work hand in hand with the hydraulic solution. So what it means is that for hydraulics, certainly becoming smarter digitally, getting more data acquisition, getting into the soft side or the electronic side of the things is is going to be very important to stay relevant and stay, at pace with the market developments. From an opportunity point of view, that's something which, while there is a lot of component manufacturing in India, this is going to be the next challenge. How do we, get into that component space, like controllers or like electronics required for these kind of applications? And today probably we don't have a very high demand, but probably it's coming and it's coming fast. So can the industry, get ready for that next stage of change?
Thank you very much, Ashok. This is a lot of, I would say, thought-provoking ideas that you have thrown up, and a kind of a picture of what the future is going to look like, which seems to be in sync with what Roopak was also saying earlier on, that technology is moving on. Sujoy, my question to you is that since you're head of application engineering now, I'm sure you come across various instances in doing application engineering with different kinds of customers, where the a product which is designed elsewhere out of India, but used in India, sometimes you feel it is not exactly appropriate. I'll give you a simple example. In hydraulics, for instance, the amount of contamination control which takes place in India or users is slightly less, shall we say. So far it was radically less, but things have improved quite a lot. So if you talk of very fine tolerances inside a hydraulic product, and added to that you have not very good contamination control, the combination of the two leads to performance malfunctions. So in your opinion, as the application boss, do you feel that technology which when we adopt, we can't just take a drawing which is made in Sweden or UK or USA or Germany and say, I'm going to make this part here. I'm going to do the same manufacturing. I'm going to localize it. I'm going to use India as a manufacturing hub and send it out. Because the kind of tolerances for which that part was designed for that application elsewhere may not work in India. Second, the machines which the designer had kept in mind to make that part may not be finding much usage in India. So my question to you, is there a case for Indianizing, if I may use the term, products?
Mr. Seshnath, thank you. This is a very relevant question. And what you said, Indianizing, I often call it design to region. Like when I was speaking about that think global and act local, if you see that globally, the technology of a particular machine is different at different country, different region. So maybe some countries are advanced, some countries are a little bit behind on the technology because of several reasons. Their market doesn't want to pay, or they want to keep always the cost of acquisition low as possible, cost of maintenance low as possible. So finally, cost of ownership is low. Yes, there are several challenges in several countries. And whatever you have mentioned, especially sometimes one valve, let's say designed in Germany for mainly keeping the high volume market. In high volume market, there maybe we require 50 different feature in the valve. But when it comes to India, maybe our market doesn't require all the 50 features. Now, every time it is not really possible to have a design to region or indigenization of that particular valve because of the maybe why yes, it is required. DTR is absolutely required, but we also need to see the kind of a volume again. Maybe to have an localized valve which exactly suits to the local market, we might need to change a particular components. And then we need to find out a local source of manufacturing of that particular components, and the volume is not that big, so the prices goes up high. You know, it's a complete cycle, and that we need to take care of. Often, in our experience, we found that to follow a global design where the total volume is better works out cheaper. But trends are changing quite fast in India. We have a lot of localized engineering projects. We are seeing more and more it is becoming viable to have an, let's say, one step down product for the Indian market or maybe other market where we would like to export. So yes, I what I understand about this industry, a lot of mid-performance product or the design to region products are coming up in India more and more, and there are some buyers of this kind of products in other countries.
Thank you very much, Sujoy. It's just a thought which a lot of people in the fluid power fraternity have been wrestling with. And I thought I'll give voice to that so that you people who are experts can speak about it. Roopak, I need to come to you to pick your brains on what is very close to your heart. To give a background to the other gentleman, I watched Roopak working in his company, and I'm astounded at the way he develops talent within his company. He doesn't teach. He gives opportunities for people to learn. They make mistakes and so on and so forth. And Roopak, I must place it on record in public audience that I'm also using your technique in the company that I work for. That brings me to the point, Roopak, in your talk initially, you mentioned that we need to upgrade skills in India of fluid power engineers, pneumatics, hydraulics, robotics, and so on. New age things like digitization and so on. We need to make a career in fluid power attractive to engineering students. We need to invest in R&D, not only in terms of technology, but also in terms of people. What are your thoughts on how we can go about it? We all know that there are a dime a dozen engineering colleges in India who churn out engineers by the dozen. But then all of us in industry, we complain that we don't have ready for industry graduates or people. How do we bridge the gap, Roopak?
So thank you. I'll come to it because, the fluid power industry is little bit, I think it is not being well advertised, though it's a very, very challenging, one of the most challenging in terms of engineering. If you have to tune electric motor or electric, machine, it's just some PID controls and all, you can do it. But to control a hydraulics, it take a lot of efforts. The important thing here is that, and I will add, something to which is already said, but I think by Rajesh, one is that, we have an opportunity in the crisis. One is that if the Western world is now, taking the lead to be going towards the alternate technology or so-called, the high-end technology, which I differ sometimes. There is nothing called high-end technology. It's all about what is needed. So I think it's a great opportunity if we we start bringing the R&D, particularly the multinationals or even the Indian companies to India. And they should be center of excellence for fluid power, not for digital, not for softwares. And if that is done, one is that there will be a good job opportunity, and we know that there is no dearth of skilled people in India or the intelligence in India. So we can attract people. There are some good examples, in some of the companies where we have quite a good number of hydraulic engineer. There are a good number of hydraulic, facility there, including the testing facility. And I tell you, they have one of the best of engineers, to the world level. I have seen them, I have interacted with them, and not only that, they are paid very well. And these are the 3-4 things which you require. One is that there has to be need, there has to be atmosphere, and they should be paid at par with what the software engineers are getting. And that will be the attraction. One of the biggest frustration what we get sometime is that when your center of excellence is in US, and when there is a small need or tweak required, most of the people goes to their parent companies, and 1 hour jobs become 15 days, 16 days or more than that, because they don't understand or translation or the time zones, etc. So one of the most important thing is whether you grow organically, inorganically in terms of R&D, whether you go to some institutes or whether you yourself employ the people for R&D, not for drawings, by the way. It's a pure R&D, and that will make you more and more local. Some of the work which we are doing is probably because we are not getting the talent outside, or the bandwidth outside. So we are forced to do that. So that is one. Second is that, as I said, you have to start as a pyramid in terms of talent. And one of the things which has to be fastly adopted is the certification courses, which is like, if I say International Fuel Power Society, if I am correct in naming that institute, they have 3 level of skill certification. So if FPSI start that type of certification, and the industry then give them the preferable jobs, even as a associate level, worker level, or machine tool operator level or assembly level, which is the bottom of the pyramid, and then go to highest paid R&D engineer who does integrations of electronics or digitals over the or do some predictive work onto a solenoid which can predict itself that now I'm going to fail, please change me, some type of thing. So you have to create that pyramid. If that pyramid is not there, there will be no traction. And as a fluid power industry, the leaders who are sitting around, you should think that how you make this pyramid. And FPSI should think that how they start this, stringent certification courses, so that if a BTech engineer who is also certified as a fluid power engineer, he get a preferential, job in one of your company rather than you seeking out somebody from outside. Or you can have an associate program with the college, that if they are doing a degree in mechanical engineer and also a course from FPSI, and once that become a graduate, you can take them as a graduate engineer, in your organization. I think that will help the industry. That would also help in bringing the talent faster, because by the time you start grooming that up, it takes a lot of time, and then people switch jobs, etc. But if you pre-train them, and again I am emphasizing that if FPSI make a pyramid of requirement, how they want to certify that, and then industry, whether that is a multinational or Indian, should tap that talent into their jobs. That will be a thing to increase the talent at a rapid pace, I am telling you. Otherwise, I think this is a knowledge which is, in my opinion, I may be wrong, completely wrong, is on a downward path.
Fully agree with you, Roopak. You made some very telling points. you spoke of trying to create a pyramid of certifications, one for the lower levels, one for the middle level, and one for the, say, a design level, a higher level. It also opens up a career path for those boys. They understand that it opens up it certifies the quality of the person who's coming into industry. So, for instance, you have level 1, level 2, level 3 welders, level 4 welders. These are certification programs where you know what is the quality of the weld a level 4 welder will give as opposed to a level 1 welder. Similarly, FPSI or IFPS certifications will give the stamp of authority and the stamp of approval for that person. You also spoke about such people being given priority recruitment into the fluid power companies. Very important, because we require a pipeline of people to keep coming into the industry. My personal with foundries, because castings is a raw material for us, for our company. And the more I go to foundries anywhere in the world, as somebody mentioned in this panel, I find only oldies there, people beyond the age of 50. Youngsters don't want to dirty their fingers and hands and bodies. They hardly come into the foundry these days. They want to go into the software sector. So that industry, in the foundry industry, is facing a serious dearth of talent. We shouldn't be going into the same way in fluid power industry. You also mentioned very well, Roopak, that we should open out new venues for people in terms of training. Certainly, to train a good fluid power engineer takes at least 2 to 3 years to bring him into a level where he can do some application engineering. If we don't put in that effort to bring a person to that, it becomes very difficult to maintain pipelines of people. Fully agree with you on that. Just another thought which struck us. We are working towards this National Fluid Power Research Institute, establishing that under the aegis of FPSI. We are in preliminary discussions with the state government as well as the central government. The Ministry of Science and Technology in Delhi also has grants and so on and so forth. So it's a public appeal. Anybody who has got data on all that, they can pass it on to FPSI. And this will be a completely autonomous body used, and it can be utilized by anybody, and it will build talent in the air, in India. Before we close, again, a couple of leading questions.
Sesh,
yes, sir.
You can also clarify on the certification courses that we've been discussing about.
Please, sir. Yeah. In FPSI, what we are doing is, we are talking to the Indian International Fluid Power Association, International Fluid Power Society, which is what Roopak mentioned. They have certain requirements. For instance, they require what is called as a proctor, who needs to be trained in America for 3 months and then placed here. He in turn will be based in India and will conduct these courses. FPSI team and the advisor of the team is also working very hard on that. Apart from that, in FPSI, we are very active with colleges, with educational institutions. To your background, in our interactions, when we wanted to know why more fluid power, why more students don't come into the fluid power line, they are put off by the calculations. When we go and talk to them, sir, we don't want to prove Bernoulli's theorem in paper. We've got enough of that in class and exams. We're not interested in Venturi's principle. What are they interested in? They want to sit in a software place and laptop and coding and so on and so forth. So what we try to do from FPSI is expose them to applications of hydraulics, pneumatics, automation, electronics, robotics, and so on and so forth, and the intermarriage between that. But from that, we move to guest faculty or every about 45-minute lectures or guest lectures. From where was born the idea of conducting certification courses for FPSI. That's still in its infancy. We are debating whether to do our own in FPSI or work through IFPS, as what Roopak was mentioning, which are made courses, but the costs are different in each. So, is there anything you would like to add on, Mr. Rao?
No, that's it. We're working through IFPS. We will give the awards on their behalf. Certification will be done at gradation, various grades, what they're competent in, etc. So we'll maintain the quality standards. So this is being discussed, and we need to see how to execute that.
And one thing all of you mentioned was that we should invest in research and development activities in India. Only then we'll start becoming competitive. In fact, Rajesh also gave an example of how China was virtually nothing in each industry about 10 years ago, but today it's a leader because they invested in that. We will have to do that investment in India, and each one of us. It's not just the Chinese government which did it; it facilitated. But it's a Chinese companies which put in the effort to do it. So I think each one of us has to do it. Before we close this session, I would just like to summarize some few points which each of you raised. It would be very useful for the audience. You all spoke about localization or make in India, and localization was driven by necessity, first of all, because of lack of availability of components today on account of supply chain disruptions worldwide. It is also born out of need to become more competitive in India, increase manufacturing in India, which has lower costs as compared to other parts of the world. Thus, the company in India becomes more competitive. And you all spoke about technological localization, not just importing technology and making it here, but Indianizing it, suiting it to Indian conditions, to Indian manufacturing and application conditions. We spoke about think big, think global. That means we have capacity available, but we have to upscale things. We have to think big, we have to think of the worldwide market for sale of goods, not just the small Indian market. Indian market is very large in other ways, but for hydraulics, it's still small. We have strong engineering education. We have a lot of engineering colleges. We have to create a pipeline by investing in these colleges, strong fundamentals of fluid power, creating a path for them to make a career in fluid power, introduce certification programs for working professionals as well as other people at different levels. As Roopak mentioned, the pyramid of skill sets needs to be built up. We spoke about strategy evolution, basically meaning stay ahead of the curve. As Rajesh mentioned, others mentioned, we create capacity, and once the capacity is up and running, it's ready, the market goes down. So this happens. I mean, cyclical business is always cyclical, and everything which goes up has to come down, and everything which comes down has to go up. So the idea is to stay ahead of the curve by building a proper strategy. We spoke about how exposure to exports and overseas markets makes not only the supply chain, but also manufacturing in India very competitive, because we have to assure quality and reliability of the products. We have to upgrade skills, also look at increasing pay packets of the boys, of the students, so it makes a career for them attractive. Again, we spoke about creating centers of excellence for fluid power by investing in R&D in India. That is, it comes back to the first point of technological localization. We have very disruptive technologies like electrification, digitization, and other path-breaking technologies which are coming up. How do we adapt to that? How do we work with them? It's not that one is going to replace the other, but most definitely there will be some amount of intermarriages. There's going to be some amount of give and take, if I may use the term, between these various technologies. So some hybrid model is going to evolve. We have to be able to look at that and adopt those techniques. New products which are path breaking, which are over the horizon represent very big opportunities for Indian industry to start off now itself. Two-wheelers, for instance, I'm not, this is of course not a summary, it just struck my mind. Two-wheeler manufacturers are going hell for leather in trying to establish manufacturing facilities in India. Though India has the largest two-wheeler market in the world, we don't have enough charging points, for instance, and two-wheelers are not meant for running between cities. So they're trying to stay ahead of the curve. Hopefully the charging stations will follow. So new products certainly afford good opportunities, afford big opportunities. Roopak mentioned a very good point. He said we have to have affordable excellence. I think it's a really good catchword. It captures not only manufacturing and technological excellence, it captures price competitiveness. Mr. Rao mentioned that the best path forward for Indian companies would be perhaps to bring technology into India, would perhaps be joint ventures. We should be welcoming MNCs to India because it creates the platform from which we can develop as a nation. Design and development once again has to come into India, and National Fluid Power Research Institute being piloted by FPSI would be a right step in this regard. Government support needed in terms of incentives for manufacturing or adoption of new technologies. That's it, gentlemen. In terms of summary, if I have left out anything, any summary, please feel free to add. We still have another 5 minutes to go. I wouldn't want to take up, beyond one's allotted time. Otherwise, we still have another 5 minutes to go. Any points any of you would like to add on?
The one point I would like to add on is that apart from the audience who are listening in, I got educated by discussing with all these gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah, it's a very well summed up, Seshnath. I think you have, you should be a reporter actually. The way you summed up, it's like capturing 2 hours.
He knows what to do after retirement.
Absolutely, very well covered. Yeah, and thank you for all of you for making me part of this very intense, very detailed discussion. We are not finding a solution here, but it's a good beginning here. And let's take it forward and represent ourselves in the right industry, government bodies, get the recognition, and show that what as a fluid power society we can contribute to the nation building. So I think that's my thought. Once again, thanking you.
Thank you very much, Rajesh. Thank you, Mr. Rao. We've had wonderful thoughts, and as Mr. Rao mentioned, I echo his thoughts. Thanks a lot to everybody. Have a good.
My last word is
please.
let the fluid flow.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice, sir. Very nice, sir. Wonderful.
Thank
sir.
you very much, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.